Hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations and I'm happy to have you joining me today. We are going to work on some thrifted items. I'm getting quite a pile and there are some that are very specific to springtime, summertime, backyard, that kind of thing. So I need to get rolling on those because despite the torrential range right now, spring flowers, the good weather's coming. So people are going to get ready for their backyards. That's when I need to have the backyard stuff ready for them. So we're going to do a couple of really quick turnarounds. And here's the difference. When I'm doing things from thrifted items, and in particular for backyards and things, the easier the better. The less cost to me in terms of my time and product, the better. Because it's such a short season here, people aren't looking to spend a fortune to be able to make their backyards look great. So any way that I can help them out, perfect. The first thing, because I like to do things based on what paint am I going to be using, what colors am I going to be using. So I have this all-in-one paint by Melange. I've been using it a fair bit just because I have it. I was testing it out, and as long as it's open and I'm working with it, I'm going to keep using it. So what I decided is I have this little chair, so a flower pot chair. It's cute but really, really kitschy. So we are going to take off all of the little wired decorations and, little wire pair. I hang on to them, just never know when I would use those again on something else. I don't like it for this, but it doesn't mean I don't like it. So we're going to remove those. This little piece might need a little bit of a screwdriver. Oh, there we go. We got that out. Okay, so I'm going to paint this entire thing. We've got flaking paint, so I am going to take my scraper. I am going to scrape that off. I'll do a quick sanding. I'm not looking at doing anything major, but we're going to get this all painted out in the azure. And I'm going to paint this little flower pot. Now, we're not going to leave the flower pot completely plain, but we are going to get a couple of coats of the azure onto it. And it's got this beautiful basket weave pattern, so we will try and pull that out. And then that is going to sit in our little chair. So we're going to start off by getting that all painted blue. And while I'm at it, I have a couple of these bins. I still need to clean them. They're kind of dirty, but they have these two plastic signs on them that are riveted in. I can't get that out. So rather than trying to chip it all off and making an awful mess and ruining these, because I think these would be super cute little planters, I am going to paint the sign with a couple of coats of the azure so that we can stencil on top of that. So that's going to be in the blue and the other chairs are going to be in the blue. So we're going to work on those before we get going on anything else. So let me just show you how beautiful this is. Now this is, Melange is an all-in-one paint, and it dries to what I would call kind of a satin finish. So it's got kind of that flat finish, but kind of in a satiny tone, and it's really a lovely paint. The coverage is awesome. So look at that. Look at that. Really, I may be able to get away with, on the pot at least, because I still want to do a little dry brushing on it in the next step. I may be able to get away with one pot coverage. one step coverage. So like just one coat here. One coat on the pot. We'll see when it dries. Usually that's when you can tell best. So I'm going to cut a coat on this. I'm going to get that little chair sanded and get a coat or two on it. and coats on the side. And then that will be it for this azure blue color. The next project is based on this. We are going to make a raised planter. We've got this big honkin' candlestick that I thrifted. So I got this for $5. Just, sorry, doing the math. And this I thrifted for $30, $69, $2. So we're gonna make it a planter together. But let's get it painted first, so much easier. So for this, I'm gonna use Gray Skies DIY All-in-One from the Cottage Color line. And for all of these, because they're going outdoors, I'm using the all-in-one paint because it's got the built-in primer, which makes it nice, but in particular, it's got the built-in top coat. So I'm automatically getting some protection with that. So for this, we are just going to paint everything in the gray, and I'm gonna have to be doing definitely a couple of coats of the gray on both of these surfaces. So both on the tin and on the tall candlestick. So we'll get both of them done in the gray. We've got another treatment to go on them. But for now, we'll worry about the gray. We're ready for the next step. All of our surfaces have got some paint on them, except for one project, and you'll see what I mean in a second. What I want to do is add a little bit of interest to them, bring out a little bit of the texture. So we have white linen in the DIY Cottage Color line, which again is an all-in-one paint. And I've just got an old ratty chip brush, which I love. And we're just going to dry brush this. So I am taking my paint onto a piece of paper. This just happens to be paper napkin, so that I don't have tons of it on. And I am just going to lightly run it over the surface, my painted surface. And in this case, we've got this lovely basket weave pattern that is on our little pot, and it brings that out, right? We don't see that so well otherwise. And we've got some little striping on the top, so we're just going to dry brush this to add a little bit of texture, a little bit of interest. And because this is going to sit in the hole on our chair, which is painted this same blue, it's going to provide a little bit of contrast, right? So just the blue sitting in the blue, it really wouldn't show up very well, but just adding a little bit of this dry brushed white is going to create a little bit of contrast. Let's put that off to dry, and is going to help just create a little bit of a nicer look. I'm still debating on the chair whether I do a little bit of white on it, trimming, but it might be overkill. So we're gonna do the same thing to this one, bring out that scroll work, and it doesn't take a lot of paint in order to be able to do this, and it doesn't take a lot of time. And because this is our all-in-one paint, it dries really fast. So I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna do the stand for it as well. I just have one other project that I wanna show you, which is also for the backyard, that was waiting for the white. And that's, okay, that didn't balance very well over there. Okay, that was waiting for the white. And that's this big old weathered, thrifted, big old weathered arrow. I mean, it's old, it's aged, it's dinged up, and really all that we're looking at doing for this one, because super cute outdoor decor is we're just gonna dry brush it. So we're just gonna lighten it up a little by adding some of that dry brushing on the outside. So we're still gonna see a lot of that old wood through it, which I love. We're just going to kind of brighten it up a little bit by adding the white. So I'm gonna get my dry brushing done, and while I have the white out, we then have one other piece that's waiting for a bit of that white. While I have my white out and ready, I also need to stencil our big tins. We got 3 coats of the blue. The printing that was on there was pretty distinct. So I have both sides of this, and what I've decided to use is a stencil from the Jamie Ray Vintage French fruit labels. This is number 1. And there's one with, let me see if you can see this here. No. This one is an apple cider. And just looking to see if I have something dark over here for you. Then maybe you can see it. Okay, maybe you can see it now. Yes. So what I need to do, the cider and the apples don't fit. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tape off those lines at the top, and I'm gonna tape off the apples. And on one side of each of the 2 buckets, because I've got the 2, I'm gonna stencil the word cider. And then I'm going to tape over the word cider and those lines, and then just stencil all the apples on the other side. So I'm using most of the stencil, but I have to use it in pieces. And don't be afraid to do that with your stencils. Look and see, oh, I only want this little piece of it. Okay, just use that little piece, tape it off. And I'm just taping this off because those lines are pretty darn close to the word cider, and there's no way that I'm gonna be able to stencil and not get them. And same thing with the apples. So what I will do is I'll stencil the word cider on either side of both of my big bucket, pails, whatever. What do you call those? Buckets? Galvanized, yeah, they're not really pale. Anyway, okay. Big oblong pails. So I'll do the word cider first on both sides, and then I will remove the tape where I need to, and then stencil the apples on both sides. So this isn't difficult. It's just going to be a little awkward because of the size and shape, but I'm going to use the 2 rivets as a bit of my guide. So again, with this, I'm using that Jamie Ray Vintage all-in-one white, but I am offloading my brush so that I don't have tons of paint on my brush. And you could tape the stencil off so that it's adhered to your surface so that you don't have shifting, or just trust in your holding ability. And we'll get these stenciled and let them dry. We still have one more step with this. Now see, look at how that white dry brushing just brought up all those swirls, and even on the base. I mean, it just makes it just a little bit more interesting. Now, the thing that remains for us is to attach the 2. And I'm gonna do a couple of things. So what I did do was I hammered in a hole in the bottom, and I drilled a hole in the top. So I am going to try and attempt to drill down through and into here, just to help secure it. I am also going to put some E6000 glue. That's probably closed up now, so let me, much better. Okay, so I'm going to put some E6000 down in here, and that's just going to help my screw adhere in there better. I'm going to put some, okay, so much easier down here. I'm going to put some around the edges in 4 spots here. That's going to help it hold in place, because there's no point in putting anything down in there because it's not going to adhere there. And then I'm going to take some hot glue in the 4 spaces in between my E6000, which will just help it stay in place right away. And what I want to try and do is get these things lined up. And I can't see it, so how do I do that? And that's already stuck on there. Well, that was fast. Okay, so what remains is for me to drill this in. Right. We have our 4 little outdoor projects all finished. And because it's staring me right in the face, let's start with this guy. We just started with an old thrifted candlestick and a tin bowl that's got a little bit of embossing on it, which adds a little bit of interest. Just simply painted it out with gray skies all in one from DIY, dry brushed some of the white linen over top, attached them, and we're done. So how cute is this as a little outdoor planter? You can plant a pot in here. You could just put a big pot in there. You could even fill it with a bit of sand and stick a bunch of candles in it if you want. Because it's nice and big and solid, it's probably not going anywhere. We also did this pretty ugly and old little chair. But now, done with a little terracotta pot, and you see what I meant about the contrast of the two. That white just lightens this up a little bit, helps it stand out against the chair a little bit. Now just ready to either plant something or to drop another pot in there with your florals, and just a sweet little addition to your backyard. We also dry brushed our big arrow, and just that little bit of dry brushing brightened that up, highlighted the details a little bit more, and made it just that much more interesting. And I think that's a fun piece. And then finally, down on the ground, we have our big galvanized buckets. Okay, you understand that the spelling difference here is because it's French, right? I'm not sure everybody's gonna get that actually taken out of context, but hey, there you go. So we just have those little pieces, which were some bizarre, weird plastic names of some company, I guess. These are old buckets. You can see that they've got some rusting. I love that about them. And I think that those are a fun addition to a backyard. Dropping in all kinds of, either dropping in all kinds of soil and then using them to plant greens would be awesome, a couple of tomato plants, or just drop in a bunch of, terracotta pots and have all kinds of flowers growing in them. Super, super cute. I didn't test them for whether they leak for water, but if they don't leak, then certainly you could drop in a bunch of ice cubes and put bottles of cider and beer or wine, whatever you're into them for a garden party. They'd also be cute for that. I hope, again, as with all the thrift flips that we do, looking at old, tired looking, broken pieces, how can we put them together? What can we do to salvage them? Gives you an idea of what you can do. What I also want to do today was just kind of highlight how quickly you can make over some of these items. So whether you're limited on time to doing them up for your backyard, I hope this shows that it doesn't have to take a lot of time. And if you have a booth or you're selling at some markets, that again gives you some items that you can flip very quickly and very inexpensively to be able to fill up your booth with items that are going to move quickly for the spring and the summer season. As always, thanks for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. And until then, take care.